Where's my guy? Hello. Hey, Evan. What's up, Dooley's mom? Hey, Nicolette Dia. Hey, TLSMMWMFY. What's going on, Clara Oko? What's going on, Caitlin and Noah? What's going on? Sorry, Noah, you can't join the show because... What's up, Matilda? Hi, Alina takes photos. What's going on, Molly and Sarah? There he is. Hang on, 2 secs. What's going on, Deborah? What's going on, Cassie? What's going on, Joshua?
Chef!
Oh, right, you're doing it.
Isolation. It's
Okay. Yeah. What key are you in?
I'm in A. I'm stealing AC/DC chords.
And what
Doing
chords?
A, and then D, and then like D with D. Yeah. Yeah.
What were you saying?
That's it.
Chef!
That's it.
Chef! Isolation.
Chef! Isolation!
That's it.
Oh, dude. Hey, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
We should record that for the
For the podcast.
yeah, for the future podcast.
That's the way.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another shelf of episodes, Shelf Isolation. A book club for our times. Two musicians, myself and Josh, taking on the world of rock and roll literature from our respective bedrooms on the other side of the planet. This is Josh. He is a solo artist based in Los Angeles, but he's actually from the East Coast, which is extremely important. And you're from Delaware.
Mostly.
Did you just say that?
Yeah, mostly,
yes.
Mostly Delaware.
Mostly Delaware. So you're, what they call the salt of the earth.
That's right.
You're made from stuff. Interesting fact about Josh is that you're thinking like, what is he going to say? Interesting fact about Josh is that you're loosely or directly related to one of John Smith's pals, Thomas.
Companions. Yeah, that's the one.
Of Pocahontas fame, of Disney fame.
Of Disney fame. They bungled the story a little bit. In Disney, he shoots Kocoum, which did not actually happen. Yeah.
It didn't happen.
No. In the movie, he's kind of a racist. He probably was in real life. Let's be real. But yeah, that's the dark past of the family.
So Josh is based in Los Angeles, makes some great rock and roll music. New kid on the block, poised for world domination. The love child of Bruce Springsteen, Tom Petty, and Bennett Bean, who is a potterer who I googled about 5 minutes ago. I was like, all right, he does pottery, but what exactly? Who the fuck? Like, are there any famous potterers?
Sure, Bernard Leach.
Bean is. I looked on
Bennett
Google.
Bean's in there. I bet. Was he Stoke-on-Trent? Where was he?
Oh no,
where was he? St. Ives? Oh, interesting.
Yeah, there are potters in America, apparently.
There sure are.
Go on. What's my introduction?
All right. He is the lead singer of the UK band The Amazons, formed in 2014, hailing from Reading, Berkshire. Named a band to watch.
It's Berkshire, by the way.
Berkshire. Is that better? Berkshire.
Berkshire. There's no rhyme or reason to it.
Named by NME, The Independent, and BBC as a band to watch, wielding a debut record that topped out at number 8 on the UK album charts. He is my friend indoors, Matthew Thomson.
Forever afflicted with like the potential thing. They've got potential. It's like sports players.
True.
They've got potential. It's like they're 27, mate.
Right.
All right. That introduction's that's definitely 5 minutes too long.
That was great.
Right, what we've been reading the last 2 weeks is Debbie Harry's Face It. It's kind of punk autobiography, kind of the rise and fall of the rise and rise of the New York new wave icons Blondie, of course. And we've had a great time with this book. There's also, like, we didn't really mention that it's kind of different to a lot of other books. Josh has been reading you've been listening to the Audible, but there's all this kind of like cool fan art.
She talks about it in the audiobook. But yeah, I didn't get to see, because she was quite a saver and a hoarder of fan art, which I find interesting. Yeah,
there's some great pics. There's some great pics in here, Josh. I'll have to send it to you. You were talking about Andrew Warhol earlier. That's really cool, right?
There he is.
So this is the final episode about this book. I've really, really enjoyed getting into the New York scene, into her life. She's a kind of a private person. And I think in other interviews, she's been pretty guarded. So this was actually really nice to see actual things about her.
She really digs into it. Towards the second half of the book is interesting, where she starts introducing, literally on the audio book, other voices, where she has friends come in and tell other stories. And she kind of, the first half of the book is so date focused and chronological, and the second half she starts expanding a little bit, which I found interesting, and I really liked that there were some long walks to points she was trying to make, where you're kind of like, where's she going with this, talking about the Bees and then talking about their album, but it all kind of tied together, and I felt like gave a really great send off to just how her brain works, which is kind of what you want as a reader. You want to see how they think.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a big moment for that is the final chapter. She kind of does a sign off where she kind of goes, I'm New York at heart. This is my story. It's been crazy. And then to kind of alleviate the seriousness of it, she puts this chapter about thumbs, which I must say I didn't get through. I had to just.
It was kind of
through it.
It was bizarre. She talks about, the chapter is called Opposable Thumbs, or opposable. She talks about thumbtacks, thumbing your nose,
thumbs on the steering wheel.
Thumbs on the steering wheel, thumbs up. All of these different ideas of thumbs. I don't remember where she landed.
It kind of really sums up Debbie in that this is obviously going to be a really it's kind of a mainstream book. It's quite a big story. It's probably going to sell a lot of copies, and there she is subverting all of it, and then fuck you to her publishers and doing a whole chapter about thumbs just because she can.
Right, because she's got the stage. She's got the attention. There she is doing it, and everyone's going to read it anyways.
Definitely. I want to talk about a moment that I was told about before I got to the end of the book, and I had to YouTube it because it was a really great moment. It was the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, where the band come on stage and they're kind of ambushed awkwardly by 2 or 3 members that are were left who left the band in the 80s, and I had to kind of read through to get to it, and I thought it was really interesting because they felt like they had such a stake in the band, and yet they weren't involved. They weren't invited properly by the band to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ceremony, and they kind of ambushed them on stage. And I guess the story is that this was members from the classic lineup that we know about, like Parallel Lines and all the big hits, and then Chris Stein, which was Debbie's partner and creative kind of partner, got super ill in the 80s, and the band disbanded, and they later sued Blondie when they weren't invited to the reunion, and yet they turned up on the
Right.
on the stage.
And they get on stage. I haven't watched it, but that is insane that it's televised. They're
So
on stage
awkward.
saying, "Let us play."
Yeah, so they come on stage and they get like a speech each, because I guess Blondie aren't
Wow.
gonna, like, Debbie and Chris aren't gonna like go crazy at them on stage. They get a speech, and then they're like, we'll be really great. They're like, Debbie, is it okay if we play tonight? And she's like, no. It's fucking horrible. But it made me think. One of the talking points I wanted to talk about tonight, coming from that, who or what defines a band?
Yeah.
And the disparity between what a band would like be defined as and what the public defines them as.
Right.
For example, in Debbie's mind during the book, when she's kind of unpacking the situation and the kind of turmoil in the band, it's all about her and Chris. Her and Chris Stein, they meet in the mid-70s and they kind of create Blondie out of nothing. In her mind, it's all them. And then obviously in the band's mind, even though they've left and they take the band to court because of like for future earnings on the reunion, they obviously felt that they were Blondie.
Yep.
And I feel like also there's an argument to be said, judging by Debbie's not failure but difficulty in getting her solo career to have enough difference between that and the, you know what I mean, like the difference between that and the band. Maybe the public feel like she is Blondie.
I think that Debbie is Blondie, and Debbie, there's obviously the band contributes so much, but just from like a fan's perspective, what you want is Debbie. Who anyone else can come on stage and it'll still work, but if you don't have Debbie, it doesn't work. In the same way of like she wrote the book, she's the one who gets to write the book and tell the story. I think because she is the center, it would all fall apart without her. But I do think about that. I mean, even like, that, like bringing it back to Daisy Jones and the Six, that's Eddie, the jealous guitar player, and everybody wants to feel like they are an equal member. But when you break it down, it's just not. In the same way that, like, could the Beatles been a band without Ringo?
Yeah. Maybe. Yes.
Yes. I think like
even without George to an extent.
Interesting. Yeah. I think it's like it's hard to say, and everyone wants to fight for like, no, it's because there's all the magic of them together. Yeah, but you can find magic without them, and it's just like, who's the essential magic?
There seems to be a trend where obviously we're talking about Debbie Harry being the center point of Blondie, but I think definitely her and Chris Stein are arguably like the kind of center point. And I was thinking that seems to be a theme. It seems to be a formula that has worked in the past for everything from the Beatles with Lennon and McCartney to the Smiths with Marr and Morrissey, Oasis, the Gallagher brothers, the brothers in the Black Crowes, a huge amount of bands. It's very like almost like you could it's hard with Led Zeppelin and bands like The Who, because they really do have all members have like kind of individual
right.
But maybe the Stones as well, with Jagger and
right.
Even if, I mean, with Led Zeppelin, Bonham and Plant and Page, and
I think so.
And Daltrey, and Fleetwood Mac, Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham, they like really broke through when there was those two central members, and also the conflict between those members.
Yeah.
Pink Floyd, yes, Deborah, massive shout. Waters and Gilmour.
Absolutely. I mean, even Springsteen with like, you could make the argument of like Bruce and Little Steven, or even Bruce and Landau, his manager. As like that pairing of the two, he really, I think, would have gone completely awry if he didn't have that type of partnership.
Tom Petty, I always think of the guitarist
Mike Campbell.
Yeah,
I think that's so true. Another distinction it kind of brings up is like the UK has bands. We talked about this in the car at some point. The UK has bands. The US has icons, but they still have the pairings. Even like Blondie, it's a band, but it's the icon of Debbie. And then like Bruce, like it's Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band, but it's really Bruce.
Yeah, it's there's kind of like they've got to be quite contrasting characters, like Debbie and Chris Stein.
Right.
Couldn't get further apart. Chris is like Stein is like a very bordering on introverted. And the things that he places value on are very different to Debbie. Debbie's much more about performance and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I think it's interesting, and also how really it's you know, the band might have an idea of what they think defines them, but really it's kind of
it's out of their control.
It's out of their control.
It's like it's public domain at that point. I mean, I think that like someone else could write you could have a biography instead of an autobiography of Blondie, and that would be just as valid. I do think that like when you are a musician, and the same thing happens with your songs. Once your songs are out in the world, they're kind of it's cliche, but they're not yours anymore. You have an interpretation of them, but anyone else's, I think, is just as good. Because
there's that cliche of always in like people with their wedding songs, and the artist always like displaying some kind of dismay at the reason why people pick them, like Every Breath You Take, or what was the Green Day one, Time of Your Life, and all that kind of stuff. I always find that really interesting.
It happens with poems too. There's some like Shakespeare sonnets. I remember in a class in college, someone in class said like, "Oh, I love this poem. Like my parents have it, a quote from this on the inside of their wedding bands," and my professor was like, "That's really unfortunate, because what this poem is really about is like adultery and something like that, and murder." It was like, "Ooh, you really missed the meaning of that one." But that's the thing. It's like, who's to say? To them, it didn't mean, the sign of a failed marriage. It meant love. It meant whatever it meant to them.
Let's talk about Debbie as like a multifaceted artist. I know you like this.
I love this because I think it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in the way that she did it. And so Debbie, throughout the book, she has small things, parts in other people's films, parts in TV shows, and then she goes on to there's a Debbie Harry Barbie, and she does a pop-up clothing line with Shepard Fairey. So she has like all of these different forms of expression. They are like commercial. She's making money from them. But it feels genuine. It feels like it's from this need to like, she has to express herself in all these different ways, or she's just curious of, that sounds interesting. I kind of want to do that. I think today there's so much more thought into how does that define the brand? How does that it's almost like working backwards. It's like, who do I want to be? And then does this fall underneath that umbrella? Instead of who you are is like defined by the perimeter of all of the things that you do and create. It's like inductive versus deductive reasoning. I think that's a little bit lost. I'm trying to think of like who's doing that today, where they just keep doing stuff. We talked about Donald Glover before, I think. It doesn't happen as much in like rock music.
No, it's something to be learned, to be fair. I think I'm actually of the, it depends. I think if you try and I don't know, if you try and spread yourself too thinly or focus on from my experience, I've always wanted just to achieve what I wanted to achieve creatively with the music, rather than doing anything else. I guess there's a fascination with doing like things like acting, and a fascination with that. And there's a certain mystery with that film industry that I had with the music industry before we even kind of did anything around it. And but there's also this kind of like, well, I wouldn't like to use my profile and fame as an actor to as a musician to leverage like better parts as an actor, and like bypass great actors who have do you know what I mean? It's like almost like an actor getting very famous doing what they do, and kind of it's different with actors turning to music because it's almost like an unlimited amount of roles. And I think in music, and I mean there's much more space in films, whilst the films is much more regimented. It's like there's certain roles you can only have one person in this particular part. Do you know what I mean? But I see, do you feel that way, that do you feel you have other, in terms of you have music and pottery?
There's music.
Think you have other outlets?
Well, I don't know about like necessarily making them commercial outlets, but I do think that it's like if you have any interest in something, why not see it through? Why put like limits on it? Like, well, I'm not that kind of, I couldn't do that. I'm not that kind of person. And I was texting you about this, that I can't remember where I heard it. I should find, it was on a YouTube video or some interview with someone saying, my advice for younger artists and musicians is if you can picture yourself doing anything else, you don't have what it takes to make it.
Yeah.
And I hate that. I think that is the worst advice to give. I think it's horrible. I think it's like, it's only like self-congratulatory of someone saying like, I knew that I could make it because I did make it because I knew I could make it. And it's like, no, you didn't know. It happened. Shut up. I think that it only breeds artists, if you think about that like, who have nothing else to talk about. It's like, you gotta have a plan B. Number one, because it might not work and it's good to have a plan B. And number two, because you're just more interesting if you have a plan B. I want to know about the other things that you do. I want to know about the things that like fuel your art. And also, if you're going to be in it for the long term, how the hell are you going to like recharge and balance out your life? And that's, it's like we talked about Springsteen saying that he likes his icons and his rock stars old and crusty. It's like you gotta have something that's gonna keep you going. Like for Bob Seger, it was jogging. He got really into jogging, and that was like his other life calling. So many examples of other musicians. Patti Smith and writing books. It's like that's a beautiful part of her life also, and I think the doorway into her world for most of us. I think it's essential. I think you have to have other stuff going on, because that's just like, just be an artist. Just do all these things. Why limit?
Yeah, why worry about positioning yourself? Why worrying about associating yourself and that kind of image before you've even done anything? We're talking about Debbie was in her early 30s and had already lived a decade plus in New York City, been going on all these kind of adventures, fucking up and meeting all these people and doing these things that didn't get off the ground. And it put her in much better stead. She says at the end of the book, she felt like she had all of her adventures and the kind of coupling of her getting together with Chris Stein and the Blondie thing was almost like that was her settling down.
She settled down
how much of a mental life that she had before.
Right.
I felt the second half of the book, there were some big moments, but I felt a lot more like infused and a lot more I don't know, there was so much more to tackle in that. I felt the first half of the book was a lot more explosive.
I thought so too. Yeah, I thought so too.
It's almost once you get into the 80s, Blondie have become big. I mean, Debbie talks about this herself in that when she was thinking about the best times of Blondie, it was when no one had any money. They were just trying to make ends meet, and they were trying to make the band work, and they were trying all these things without worrying about what mainstream success is. And I feel like the book almost takes on the same kind of trajectory. And actually the opportunity that she has in the second half of the book is to talk about more juicy stuff.
Right. One
being, how can you be with someone for 13, 14 years? And I just feel, and it just ends. And I
Yeah.
mean, she probably dedicates like 2 lines to like Andy Warhol dies on the same day as
Yeah.
her and Christine break up, and she
Yeah.
doesn't really talk about that. And that's where her kind of reputation being quite private bleeds into her own autobiography.
Well, I think it's interesting because it's almost like they break up, but they almost don't break up because she gets an apartment down the street from his, and
Yeah,
they still see each other pretty much every day after they break up. They continue to
yeah,
be in a band together. They continue to work together on solo records and Blondie records. So I think it's interesting. It's like such a folded emotional landscape in that moment. But I think it is a breakup, but it's almost not a breakup.
yeah.
Hmm.
Nothing really changes except
Yeah.
I mean, he gets married, and she
Yep.
says she's disappointed.
Yeah.
But I think, the opportunity to kind of get into more juicy life stuff is missed a little bit, and I think it's probably missed on purpose because she doesn't want to share.
She doesn't want to do it. Well, because it's more recent. It's like the
Yeah,
stuff from the past is almost like canonized. Like this, it's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. All of that stuff. So it's like kind of fair game, and it's almost like that isn't real life anymore.
no,
Like the buildings are gone. Some of the people are gone. Like that whole way of life isn't here anymore. So that stuff, it's like that feels like fair game. Anyone can talk about that, and you can call people out, and you can talk shit. But in recent life, that's real life. I wonder
yeah,
if she hides from it that way.
you don't want to dissect it as much.
Hmm.
If anyone's been reading the book and wants to throw in some questions, now is definitely the time to do it. I didn't say that earlier, but you're more than welcome to chip in.
We love questions.
Let's have a look. I also agree with Andy Incoming with Elton John and Bernie Taupin being a great
Absolutely.
music, to the extent where we know who Bernie Taupin is, to be fair, because he's a lyricist. I haven't seen a huge amount of press with
Yep.
him. I think him being involved in the Rocket Man film and quite an integral part in terms of his character has probably done him the world of good.
And we will learn much more about Elton and Bertie beginning this coming week as we read Elton's autobiography, Me, for the next 2 episodes
I
of
think I've got it.
Shelf Isolation. Mine is in the mail. It's in the post.
Oh man.
All right.
All right, no, I haven't got it. Oh, you know what? What I do have, Brawl.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah. Josh
That
gave
was
me that.
that was the professor. That was my professor I was talking about earlier.
Yeah. So cool. All right. Well, I'd lost it. Fantastic. That's a really good.
Good.
Should we rate books?
Should we rate them? Ooh.
Should we? I always like a rating. You know what
Yeah.
goes my head in? When you read an album review or you read a film review and they don't put a rating, like, come on.
Yeah, it does feel like
I
they
also think rating's dumb, but
I'd give the okay. What are we rating out of?
it's got to be out of 10.
All right, rating out of 10. I'd give it a solid 6.
Oh.
And part of that is because I thought the second half of the book falls off a little bit, and I wish there was a little more. I almost wish she had like fluffed it a little more. I wish there was a little more like creative liberties taken.
Oh,
sorry.
Right. There's certain moments where you are almost left like hungry for more.
Yes,
but not in a
for
good
details,
way.
for like setting, like set the scene for us of like take us into that spot. Josie Bloomer, I'm sorry, that is harsh, I know. Helen, I'll take the 8 out of 10. I'll give you that. All right, I'll move it to a 7. I thought it was great.
I do feel there could have been maybe more. I liked with other autobiographies like Dylan, where he picks moments of his life and he just fleshes it out. A huge amount, a tremendous amount. I found Hannah M. Fielder finding it eye-opening that the way her label blocked Debbie from other creative opportunities such as Blade Runner. I felt that was really, really interesting, and
Yeah.
I don't think that would happen today. I think that kind of opportunity would be encouraged,
Absolutely.
almost to just raise the profile. There's this kind of this whole obsession with raising the profile and the brand of someone rather than just record sales, because I guess the record sales have diminished since the time of Blondie.
Yep.
The age
And
of
also,
gland.
I think also today, if you do something that's not very good, there's so much coming out that people forget. Like if you're Debbie Harry and you're in a movie that kind of bombs today, people are like, oh yeah, that they either didn't see it or that moves on to something else. The topic of conversation changes so quickly that the stakes are so much lower.
That's definitely influenced a couple of our decisions on some stuff. There's this there was a film soundtrack that we were going to do, but it didn't work out. But very much part of the conversation was like, if it doesn't do well or whatever it is, then like the conversation moves on so quickly. And especially in terms of like the pandemic, from a personal point of view, we could do with a bit of financial. Just need a payday, mate.
Financial artillery. You need the cavalry to come in.
Andy Incoming really enjoyed the Status Quo biography. Was a real eye-opener on them to their lifestyles. Yes, more suggestions. That would be great. We still are yet to find an AC/DC biography.
That's going to be our undertaking.
So we are doing Elton John, me, next. We're doing High Fidelity, Nick Formby, bit of fiction around the cult of fandom, you could call it, which I think is sometimes as interesting as the artists themselves.
I feel with High Fidelity, we should both watch the original movie.
Yes.
And we should watch the new one. I feel like we should that would be an interesting conversation topic as well, because then it's also easy to watch movies and TV, and then we can all have a lively discussion after that.
In one of the films.
The original, and the new one is Zoe Kravitz, I think. Is that right?
Wow. I didn't know there was a new one. Okay, so what else are we doing? Shaky, which is a biography of Neil Young by Jimmy McDonough. Donna. Girl in a Band, Kim Gordon. My sister's read it, so it's fantastic. I think that would be really fun. And the fifth in our list coming up will be Uncommon People, The Rise and Fall of the Rock Stars by David Hepworth, which is one of my favorite books. I absolutely love it so much. I also want to just put this on the record. David Crosby the other day.
Yes.
Should have started the episode with this. David Crosby the other day, it was the weirdest thing. So the Amazons did a feature with the Evening Standard, like entertainment magazine thing online, and basically did this one of these classic share your isolation songs you've been listening to. So what we did, in the band, we like picked 3 or 4 songs each. We did like this kind of like blurb about why we liked it, like this little paragraph about which songs we picked and why we did that. And one of the songs was I Shall Be Released by which is the live version of a Dylan song by the band. And I finished off my kind of piece about it by saying, and David Crosby used Any Day Now, which is one of the lyrics, as a mantra that he carved onto his Texas cell wall in the 80s. He was basically in prison for about a year in the 1980s. One of many adventures that he kind of went on, drug fields, basically. And I wake up the other morning, look at Twitter, and I followed David Crosby, and he basically copied and pasted basically the excerpt what I kind of put down, and it was the trippiest thing, because I was like, is that, I wrote, those are my actual words, that's weird. So I don't know how he saw he obviously liked it. I've heard that those guys have fairly inflated egos. I just feel like it took, with the amount of time, I mean, I replied to him, let's put it that way, and I on Twitter I just said, hey, I wrote this, honoured all this kind of stuff. And you would have thought for a man of his age, it would be easier to reply to a tweet than copy and pasting us. Which he
No
did
word
do
yet.
the old shit. So, David, if you're watching,
If you're watching,
you aren't.
he tunes in. He watches.
Recognition.
He's gonna tweet back. I think we'll have him on.
He won't.
We'll have him on the podcast, and
Really won't.
we'll ask him to explain himself.
Nicolette Didier.
Yes.
The new one is a Zoe Kravitz series on Hulu. Okay, so that's the high fidelity.
Excellent.
Okay.
Natalie, thank you, says that it's a blast and a half, and that they loved it. Amazing. Thank you, Natalie.
Hannah and Fielder said, I could feel the fanboy vibes from your tweet about this. What do you want from me?
Guilty.
One day world will see books written by M. Thomson and J. Speers.
True.
A joint written book, that could be fun.
Do you have more initials? I'm trying to get all mine in there. I've got JTO Spears.
Oh, what's the O?
Oliver.
Oh yes, of course. Train Oliver.
Those are the ones.
Kieran Rihanna says, we all saw you being a fanboy.
Sure did. I got a text message. I was awakened by a text message saying, Josh, look at this.
Yeah, I know. I remember. And on that note, you bastards, thanks for joining us. Next week we'll be reading Elton John, Me, his big autobiography that he must have published last year. And we'll be discussing that. So send in your questions as you're reading. Josh, you can put together a playlist of Elton John songs and music.
Yeah, we'll get on the Shelf Isolation playlist of Elton John and his peers and collabs.
Yes.
And we'll get everybody listening. Send in questions, read the book, or watch the Elton John movie, and we'll talk about all of the things.
Yeah, I think there's a relation between the Me and Rocket Man films, right?
I think so. I still haven't seen it.
Don't read the book.
Reading the book.
No, it's fine. It's a fun couple of hours.
I'll get there.
Okay.
All right.
Nice one, guys. We'll see you next week, Tuesday, 8 p.m. BST, 12 p.m. PST, 3 p.m. EST. I don't know any other time zones, so you'll just have to work it out for yourselves. Peace.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
See you, Josh. See you, baby. Bye.
Bye.